everyone. It's Michelle Caruana from Play Cafe Academy. I know it's been a couple months since I published a new video on this channel, but I promise it is for a good reason. And I have a lot of amazing videos coming for you in the next couple weeks and months. So if you guys have been following me for a while, you'll know that we sold our house in February. We're moving towns. We are building our dream home a couple hours away. And while our house is being built, we've spent the last couple months kind of traveling along the East Coast. So for 3 months, we spent some time in Charleston, South Carolina. Then we went to Fayetteville, North Carolina. Then we were just a couple of different places bouncing around. But it's given me a really wonderful opportunity to not only visit some Play Cafe Academy members, but also visit a really wide range of facilities, children's museums, gyms, play cafes, other play centers, all types of things. So I'm going to be sharing those over the next couple of videos. But I want to start off this little mini video series by saying that I'm probably going to be giving these businesses an overly critical review. And that is not to say that there is anything wrong with these businesses or they're not successful or I don't think they'll be successful. If I was just a parent talking about these businesses to another parent, I probably would only have amazingly nice things to say because I honestly didn't have any poor experiences anytime I visited any of these facilities. The only reason I'm being a little bit nitpicky and a little bit overly critical is because this is a channel for other business owners. One of the things that I did that I think really contributed to my success in this industry is I traveled all over and I visited dozens of play cafes and facilities. And I found out these little nitpicky things that I didn't really like as a parent that weren't really a big deal, but kind of, again, business owner to business owner, you notice these types of things. And by taking things that I liked and things that I didn't like from all of these different facilities and kind of meshing them together and making them my own for my facility, I think that really contributed to my success. And just being able to see different facilities, how they run, things like that, I think that really helped me. So if any of you guys are interested in going down this journey, but maybe don't have the time or the bandwidth or are unable to travel due to the COVID pandemic, I wanted to share a couple of my experiences with you. So again, parent to parent, all of these facilities were absolutely amazing. I have nothing negative to say parent to parent, but as a business owner, again, there are little things that you pick up on when you visit another facility that is similar to yours. So I just wanted to start off by saying all of the facilities that I'm going to be talking about, top notch. There was just a few things that I wanted to point out as a business owner who teaches other business owners. So the first one that I wanted to highlight is called Bravery Kids Gym, and it's in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Now, we visited this facility several times because, again, I really, really enjoyed it. And I'm going to put a picture up now so you can kind of get an idea of what the space looks like. It is very gross motor focused, not a whole lot of imaginative play, which I actually appreciated because my kids are a little bit older now. I have a 4.5-year-old and a 6-year-old. So while that imaginary play kind of holds their focus for a short period of time, it's definitely not as engaging as it was when they were toddlers or when they were a little bit younger. So I really liked that it was gross motor focused. And as you guys know, my 4.5-year-old has nonverbal autism, and I really appreciated that this facility took a lot of care and attention to detail when it came to sensory needs and when it came to children that are probably neurodivergent. But something that I loved also is that it wasn't closed to children who are neurotypical or who don't have physical or mental disabilities of any kind. My 6-year-old had an amazing time every single time we went, and he is not on the spectrum. He does not have any sensory needs. So I love that they are accepting and open and accommodating to children of all abilities. That was something that really caught my attention because we have a very similar facility back in Victor, New York, back where our old house was, where our old play cafe was. We're no longer living there, but there was a facility that was very similar, but they weren't open to the public. They were only open to children with a prescription, with an autism diagnosis. And while I completely understand that business model, and they were mainly open for therapy, it kind of left me feeling a little bit lost or not included when my son was still waiting to get a diagnosis, even though his therapist felt he absolutely was on the autism spectrum. It kind of left us hanging in the balance, and we never unfortunately got to enjoy that facility. So I love that it was great for children with sensory needs. You can tell again that whoever put this place together, the owner, I didn't get a chance to meet her. I wish I did, but you can tell that she spent so much time and that she is very passionate about providing an inclusive space for children with sensory needs specifically. So there was a light up bubble machine, kind of like a lava lamp, that was really cool. There were these pads on the ground that you could step on that were squishy. So that was a nice little sensory input. My son with autism absolutely loved those. There was all sorts of things on the wall, which you guys know that I recommend to not only make your space bigger, but just to add some more activities without taking up a lot of space, and just giving a little bit more of that focused play opportunity, especially because this place was so focused on gross motor play. It was nice to have some of that fine motor play built in those wall activities. So I really, really liked that. I also really liked that you could tell that this facility would have been great for a wide variety of ages. So even though my kids were 4.5, and 6, while we were there, we saw a 1-year-old playing, we saw probably a 2-year-old playing, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, we saw a 7-year-old playing. It was really, there was something for everybody. And I always appreciated that as a mom of multiple children. I have 2 children, obviously, but that was one of the biggest complaints that we used to get at Climbing Vines, was that our space was really for like toddlers and preschoolers, and the older siblings, when they would come, they weren't as engaged. There wasn't as much for them to do. So that was a huge plus side, something that I missed out on when I was designing my business space. So I definitely want to give them kudos for designing a space that was great for kids of all ages, all the way up to that like 7, 8-year-old range. I also really liked that there was a lot of safety signs. So as a parent, when I go to some of these facilities, I'm always overly cautious because I don't know what the rules are. Even though I read the waiver, even though I read the rules poster, I always wonder how my kids are supposed to use each piece of equipment. And, I'm a big rule follower. I don't like to break rules. I don't like to stir the pot or anything like that. So I'm always wondering, like, oh, is he allowed to do that? Are we allowed to utilize this in this way? And I love that this place had really clear instructions and really clear rules for almost every single piece of equipment. And that was pretty unique. So again, huge props, huge kudos to the owner for not making parents guess if our children are utilizing the equipment in an acceptable manner, because I don't want to break anything and I also don't want my kids to get injured. So I really appreciated that. I also really liked that there was a separate sensory room that was perfect for calming my son down if he got a little bit overstimulated, or just having something different. And it was nice and quiet. It was away from the hustle and bustle of the gross motor play. That's where the lava lamp type thing was. I know there's a name for it. I'm gonna have to link it because I know exactly where they got it. I've seen it before, but this was something that both of my children were absolutely fascinated by. I love that they had some sensory swings. My son loves that movement. He loves compression. So I love that they had those sensory swings available for use. There was also a nice little tent that he enjoyed climbing into. Again, maybe he was feeling a little bit overstimulated, but I absolutely love that they had this separate sensory room for, again, children of all needs, all abilities. I thought that was really, really clever for them to have. And again, that's something that I wish that I would have included in my space when I was designing it. I like that there was a separate baby area really wasn't a baby area. It was for children 5 and under, and it had a little bit more of that imaginative play and things like that. There was like a play kitchen and things like that, but there really wasn't a designated infant area. Again, it didn't really affect me because my children are a little bit older, but I did note that there wasn't an area for crawlers or anything like that. And I also noticed that the 5 and under area, while it was a little bit separate, there was no fence, there was no closure to kind of keep the older kids out. My 6-year-old is, verbal. He understood when I read the sign to him that, he can't play with those toys. He can't play in that area. But for my 4.5-year-old, even though it was technically within the age range, there was a couple smaller babies in there. And I really wanted to keep him out of it so that they could play and they could crawl around and things like that. But there really wasn't a way for me as a parent to easily visually communicate with him like there would have been with a fence or something like that. Like, hey, we can't go in this area right now. It's for little babies. I remember at Climbing Vines, not only did we have a fence, but we also had a sign with a baby on it for those kids who might not be able to read yet, or for kids who might be nonverbal, to kind of give them that visual cue, like, I'm not a baby. This area is for smaller children. So I wish they would have had some sort of enclosure or some sort of signage that was a little bit more visual and not just text-based, so that I could have more easily kept my almost 5-year-old out of the infant area, because I'm sure we detracted from those customers' experience a little bit, because I kept having to go get my 5-year-old from kind of trampling over the smaller infants. Even though he was technically within the age range, I felt like it really wasn't appropriate for him to be there. Something else that I really loved about this space, I'm just like reading notes off my phone, was that it was really bright. It was very engaging. It definitely made me happy as a parent when I was there. It gave us a lot of energy. I love that it was bright colors. A lot of the play spaces these days are doing a lot of the more muted, neutrals, things like that. This place was all primary color based, which, some people love it, some people hate it, but my kids absolutely loved it. It made for great pictures. And if we lived in the area for a little bit longer, we would have definitely hosted a birthday party or an event or purchased a membership or something like that. And one last thing, again, this is something business owner to business owner, but I love that it was really easy to find. It was in a plaza. There was tons of parking. It was very easy to find. A lot of times these play spaces are tucked away and it's really hard to find them and the instructions aren't clear on the website, but this place was very easy to find, lots of parking, no issues there, 10 out of 10 for location. Now, these are some nitpicky things that, again, as a parent wouldn't bother me, or I would never point them out parent to parent, but as a business owner, there are just a few things that I wrote down that might be areas for improvement. I noticed that they had a rock climbing wall that was amazing. Whoever put it together, very well built. However, the facility didn't allow shoes. So both of my children, even though they absolutely love rock climbing and it's one of their favorite activities and they're both really good at it, they weren't able to actually utilize the rock wall because they had socks on. So it was really slippery. They kept falling off of it. It felt a little bit dangerous, even though there was a pad underneath it. So if I was doing some space planning or thinking about how to organize that business, I would either have a section where shoes are allowed, where that rock wall is, or maybe I wouldn't have put a rock wall. I might have used that space for something else. But my children were just really frustrated that they couldn't climb the rock wall with their socks on. The next thing that, again, is very nitpicky, but all of the times that we went there, and this really depended on who was working, I noticed, but the music was extremely loud and it was very aggressive. It was like early 90s rock almost. Like, for example, well, this isn't really 90s rock, but like they were playing like the Tootsie Roll song repeatedly. Um, and it was extremely loud to the point where I was trying to have a conversation with my husband who was sitting directly next to me and we could not hear what each other were saying. It really changed the entire vibe of the space, and I think it made my children like go off the walls a little bit more because the music was so high intensity and it was so extremely loud. And they were playing a lot of Disney songs, which are absolutely fine, but again, the volume was just, I've never heard music that loud. And again, it was every single time we went. I noticed, again, different employees like different styles of music. Some of them liked Disney, some of them liked the more kids bop, rock music, things like that. But it was very loud and it completely changed the environment. We liked to play really soft music, more like classical music, instrumental music. And that was, it all changes the whole vibe. And I felt like because, again, the music was so intense, my children were completely crazy and off the walls, which is perfect for that kind of facility. But as a parent, it was just very distracting and it was really hard to have a conversation. And speaking of having a conversation or doing a play date or a meetup, there was really no seating. There was a couple like plastic chairs for adults to sit on, but they weren't very comfortable. They were right by the door. We brought in a coffee, but there was absolutely no tables. It's definitely not designed for parents. It's definitely designed for kids. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? Because as parents, we want our children to have fun and be happy. And that's really what we care about. But as a parent, I also just kind of want to kick back in a comfortable chair, a couch, maybe a chair with an armrest. I know if I had an infant that was breastfeeding, it would have been very difficult to nurse them with a chair without an armrest. The adult seating was definitely lacking. And if I was designing the space a little bit differently, I probably would have chose different or maybe a variety of different seating options. There was also no fence between the keeping kids in the play area. And I thought this was interesting for a couple different reasons. Number one, any child, if they weren't being monitored very closely, could have just walked out the door through the play area into the very busy plaza. And as a parent, we are, of course, responsible for watching our children and everything like that. But I noticed that they did drop-offs. And so basically, parents could drop off their kids for like 3 to 5 hours a day, I think. So I thought it was really interesting that there was no fence, not only keeping the adults out of the play area or keeping the kids in the play area, but it could have been really easy for somebody to just walk in the facility because the front desk was all the way, it was probably like, I don't know, 25 to 50 feet. I'm really bad at distance, but the front desk, you have to walk all the way to the other side of the facility when you get in the door. So, I really wouldn't have felt comfortable dropping my children off there because it would have been so easy for somebody to just walk in, grab a child, walk right out. There was absolutely no fence, no barrier between the door and the play area, or a child could have just, walked out if they weren't being closely monitored. So I wish the play area was a little bit enclosed and wasn't so easily accessed from the outside, or as an alternative, the front desk would have been much closer to the front so that they could have more closely monitored the door and the play area and make sure everybody is where they need to be. Children are leaving with who they need to leave through with, all that good stuff. So I personally just wouldn't have felt comfortable dropping my kids off there. I would have liked to see an enclosure or a better security system, especially for the drop off kids. A couple other nitpicky things. They had a really great space for events and things like that. But the event calendar was completely empty. I did notice that they had some events coming up on their website, so they just didn't write them down on the calendar. But as a parent, when I'm watching my kids play, especially now that they're a little bit older, I want to look around. I want to see what they have coming up. My mind gets a little bit busy and I don't just want to sit on my phone the whole time I'm there. So I would have loved to have some brochures, some birthday information, some more information about current events, because that might have made me purchase some tickets. It might have made me look into booking a birthday party if I had been a local parent. I just felt like they weren't utilizing their space as much as they could have for cross promoting their different revenue streams, for promoting their different businesses. They had a very small retail area. I think they could have done really amazing things with that, especially because they are so sensory focused. So I'm sure that a lot of parents of children on the spectrum, or even homeschooling parents, I'm sure if there was books, if there was maybe STEM toys or anything like that, I think parents would have really utilized that retail section a lot more. I think they could have done a lot more with that retail section. And I think they could have done a lot more with their walls in terms of cross promoting their different business ventures and things like that. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is that, and this was kind of specific to us, and again, this is very nitpicky, but right when you walk in and kind of right as you're leaving, right by the shoe racks, there was also bins and bins of these little toys like dinosaurs, blocks, things like that. And my son is absolutely obsessed with dinosaurs and those little toys and things like that. And it's really hard for me to explain to him, that we can't take them with us and that they're not for sale. It kind of made it look like they were almost for sale, or it was a retail area, but it made every single time leaving a huge disaster. Every single time we left, I had to pull him out screaming just because of those little toys that were right by the door. If they had maybe had those towards the back of the facility, or if they had maybe done away with them altogether, I'm not really sure what the purpose was of those bins of the categorized toys. But for me, it didn't really contribute anything to the play space. It didn't contribute to our experience. It just made leaving very difficult. And I know for my fellow parents who have children on the autism spectrum, I'm sure a lot of them can relate to that issue, especially when your children are fixated on one specific thing like dinosaurs. So again, it was impossible to bypass this section when we were getting ready to leave and putting on our shoes. So that was, again, just my only nitpicking thing that really made it hard for me to bring my children there without my husband, because when my almost 5-year-old has that type of meltdown, it's very hard to physically remove him while keeping my 6-year-old safe and all that stuff. But again, overall, the space was amazing. We had a great experience. I would not hesitate to recommend this facility to any of my parent friends. Again, it was great for children with all abilities, and we will certainly be back when we are in the area. And again, huge kudos to the owner for putting so much time and thought and clear passion into this business. I was so impressed and I cannot wait to return. So that is my little review of Bravery Kids Gym in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I hope you guys check it out and make sure you let the owner know that I sent you. All right, have a great day, guys.